Okay, folks, it is showtime, and welcome to our first ever Learn to Hunt LTH Bear Hunting 101 webinar pilot. We've had bear workshops in Waynesville, attempting to get there in the Asheville area, but this is our first ever bear webinar and hope you enjoy it. We've got a serious list of panelists tonight. Colleen Offenbutel, Game, Mammals, and Surveys Supervisor, Black Bear Regulations and Q&A. Jenna Malzahn, Black Bear Biologist. She'll be doing the Black Bear Biology and Q&A. Casey Williams, I think Casey's out there. Western Engagement and Education Supervisor. She'll talk about the future of Learn to Hunt, or I will. Greg Queen, our District 6 Wildlife Conservation Biologist. He'll cover the hunting Q&A. Lee Scripture has been working with me for quite a while, a great guy, shooting sports engagement coordinator. He'll be covering hunting and Q&A. And obviously moi, Deke James, hunter engagement coordinator, MC, hunting slides, and Q&A narrator. Long list of panelists, and you're really going to enjoy it. Webinar length is 1 hour. It is recorded and distributed in less than or equal to 2 weeks. It could be longer. That link that you get does not automatically turn into the link. So by getting to see the live event, you get it first. Then there's a 30-minute Q&A session. We take questions in writing only. There's no talking heads. And I won't move on. Topic specific and addressed at the Q&A. Chat hand raising is not monitored. And please allow us to cover material before writing questions, because a lot of people will start writing questions and we end up covering the material. And there'll be plenty of time at the end. We might run long for this first pilot bear webinar, but it is going to be to your benefit. Everybody has tweaked down the information somewhat from the workshop, but we want to give you the best we can. So if it runs over 8 o'clock, you're going to benefit. Please do complete our post-webinar survey. I'm going to remind you of that at the end. And the way I'm going to handle that is you'll get the post-webinar survey along with the recording. That way, whoever didn't get to watch the live, they'll be able to watch it and then complete our webinar survey. That's really important because it helps us to improve the programming. As I always say, that Regulations Digest in our website there, you can see the link that got a facelift. Now it says .gov, not .org. So you want to make sure you update your information because that'll be changing, I think, in March, where it won't accept .gov anymore or .org anymore. It's accepting it right now, but it's going to be .gov. And again, thanks for joining us tonight. Since Casey, are you out there? Okay, well, here's how it goes. Future of Learn to Hunt, it's still going to be continued offered statewide by wildlife staff. Topics included, you can see it there, you can read it for yourself, and that is dependent on the amount of staffing. Keep an eye out on Go Outdoors for updates. That's where you're going to get it. Deke James is retiring this year, so my official last day in work will be Wednesday, December 31st, and I will officially retire January 1st, 2026. I'll say that this has been a humbling thing for me. I have absolutely looked forward to every day. I mean, we all have aspects of our job we're not nuts about, but believe me, when it comes to sharing hunting with folks, that is something I really needed in my life to be more altruistic. And this position as hunter engagement coordinator did. This is the last webinar. Every event has been a last, and it's been great. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's webinar. I'm assuming that Jenna is out there. All right, and approving. Awesome. Ready to go, Jenna.
Okay, sweet. Hi, everybody. I'm going to be going over black bear biology. And to start, let's see.
And you should be able to touch the screen, and then it should move. Yep.
All right, there we go. To start, I'll quickly go over some of the black bear history for our state. So historically, black bears can be found throughout North Carolina. However, they were extirpated from the Piedmont in like the mid-1900s, and remnant populations only really existed in the coastal and mountain regions. And as of 1975, we did have a symposium on endangered species in North Carolina, and concern over our declining black bear population did indicate that we put black bears up as a special species of concern. The turnaround, however, though, is that we did kind of everything listed here. And we were able to turn around our black bear population that we have today. So that includes efforts to collect biological samples, and we actually kind of recognize the need for more information. And so the legislature granted the WRC authority to acquire that bears harvested be registered. And then we're also able to do regulations in closing hunts and changing bag limits and things like that. And then with registration now required, the agency could monitor harvest rates and gain information such as sex, ratio of harvest, county of harvest, method of take, and daily harvest levels. We could also identify successful bear hunters and work with them to collect biological information, which we'll get into a little bit further in this presentation. And unfortunately, regulations are kind of worthless without enforcement. So we do have enforcement for many of our game species, including bears. Poaching and illegal trade in gallbladders was very extensive in the 1970s for black bears. And then again, before management recommendations and decisions can be made, we do need our baseline data. And so a lot of information we kind of took for granted, such as like range of black bears in North Carolina, their movements, including diet, reproduction, denning ecology, and mortality, and habitat preferences. We were able to work with universities and do our own research and kind of figure out and answer these questions. And then really want to highlight one of the most important developments we had in the recovery of black bear populations in our state began in 1971, and that was with the creation of the designated bear management areas. So we had 28 of these areas were established to protect about 800,000 acres of habitat from bear hunting. The idea was to protect core areas of habitat that encompass the home ranges of breeding females. So the females reproduce in those areas, and bear population would then increase and expand into surrounding areas. And then also reforestation and adaptability of kind of the habitat also helped turn it around and give us the bear population that we have today. And so for this, we'll kind of be going through what that kind of looked like. So back in 1971, this is the bear range we had in North Carolina. And just to note, this is range, this map is created based on evidence of breeding females, because so there could have been bears outside of these areas, but the map is based on established breeding females. So this is 1971, 1981, you can see a little bit growth, 1991, 2001, and then our current bear range map is from 2010, and I'm currently working on updating this as well. But as you can see, bears have expanded a lot throughout the state and are currently at probably about 67% can be found statewide. And so we'll now get in kind of more biology basics of black bears. So to start, bears are born, cubs are born, generally in January, February. Females will give birth to a litter of between 1 to 3. You can have bears up, like litter sizes up to 4 or 5 in certain areas. When cubs are born, they're born itty bitty, 8 to 12 ounces at birth. They only weigh about 1/250th, or they're only the size of like 1/250th of the mother, which is kind of insane to think about when you think about how big a bear can be. And they're born with eyes closed, ears closed, hairless, and completely helpless, and are completely dependent on mom from birth. And they will stay with their mom for about 1.5 years. And then here, since we're in hunting season, we'll mainly focus on fall diet, but black bears are omnivores, and so they will eat pretty much anything and everything. In the fall, they're going to be focusing mainly on a high intake of hard mass and acorns, and then fruit that is still available on the landscape. And then in the fall, they are going through a biological process called hyperphagia, which means basically immense appetite. So throughout the rest of the year, they need about 3,000 to 5,000 calories per day. But come fall, that switches to needing 20,000 calories per day. So depending on food availability throughout the landscape, bears may be having to move around a lot more to be able to reach that daily intake need. And this is a way for them to bulk up for hibernation. And you can see there's a nice video of them, a couple bears eating some acorns from a tree. And then for North Carolina, throughout them all, our oldest bears that we have aged out is a female that was 27 and 0.75 years old from Bladen County. She weighed 365 pounds. And then that was from 2023. And then we did have a male harvested back in 2005, who was our oldest one at 24 and a half years old from Bertie County. And we mentioned kind of later on, but this is why, and these are kind of the results you'll get from submitting your premolars, is you'll get your ages of the bear. And so you can kind of see this is what the premolar looks like, and then this is actually how we age it. So each year, the bear makes a deposit within its tooth, and you kind of then are able to count it like a rings in a tree to actually get the correct age of the bear. And we use this to pull back into our population reconstruction models so we can get a better understanding of what our bear population looks like in the state. And then for our bears, as you guys are probably aware of, we have some of the biggest bears, and we actually, as a state, hold the world record for the biggest bear harvested, and that was 880 pounds from 1998 in Craven County. And if you were wanting to kind of get into the top 10 weights of bears, you'd have to harvest a bear over 737 pounds at this point to kind of break it in. Okay, you can kind of see, you get some big bears, as you can see from this video on your right. And especially because you guys are looking to hunt, I wanted to break down some ways of kind of understanding what kind of bears you're looking at when you're out there. So these are kind of good ways to distinguish between first young bears and old bears. And so for young bears in particular, you're going to have kind of a tall, slender body, generally going to be gangly on all legs, especially young males. And for yearlings, they're going to be about similar in size to a Labrador Retriever, so about 80 to 100 pounds. And then really good thing to know is there's going to be lots of daylight under the belly, which can be similar to a female bear, but that's a kind of a good way to distinguish kind of age. And then also your head is going to appear more streamlined and tapered, and the ears are going to appear very large compared to the head. They're still kind of growing into their ears, so they're going to be proportionally a lot bigger than older bears would be. And then on the flip side, for older bears, they're going to appear shorter with less daylight under the belly, which you can kind of see a breakdown with the pictures we kind of have on the slide. And then their head is going to appear generally more blocky and thick. And then also as a bear ages, their head does get larger and their ears appear smaller and spaced kind of more widely apart across the top of their head. So those are good things to kind of think about. And when you want to try to figure out kind of what bear you're trying to harvest, these are good distinctions to make. And then in that same kind of thought, I'll briefly go over the difference between males and females, because I do think it's also going to be covered later on in this presentation, even more. But for females, faces are going to be longer and narrower, like kind of head and muzzle. The ears are going to be sitting more centered and appearing larger. Legs are going to taper above the ankle and kind of be V-shaped. Body is generally slimmer and leaner. And then they can have smaller bears present with them, which were going to be her cubs from that year. So generally, multiple bears are traveling together, it's probably going to be a family unit. On the flip side, males are going to have a wider and blockier head with a wide muzzle. Ears are going to appear way smaller and widely spaced apart. Legs are going to be straighter and thick from top to bottom, They're going to usually have a stocky and short neck. And then in particular, black bears are sexually dimorphic. So a mature male is going to be a lot bigger. That's the biggest bear you're going to get. And then also they're generally solitary. So they're going to be kind of roaming around by themselves, especially during the hunting season, that part of year. And then we do a bunch of kind of pictures at the bottom, try to get so you can kind of see, especially for this one right here. I think you guys can see my mouse, but like this is a male laying down right here. This is a female right next to him standing up. So you can kind of see, even with him laying down, not standing up, there's obviously a very big size difference between the two. And so now we'll kind of get into more about the senses of black bears. So bears' eyesight is very similar to humans, and likely actually not as good as humans. So they kind of have relatively okay eyesight, but they generally are going to be relying more on their sense of hearing and their sense of smell in particular. So they do have good sense of hearing, but their sense of smell is so good that they can actually smell ripe berries in the air or steak grilling from at least a few miles away and perhaps even up to 20 miles away. They're actually, like, their sense of smell is 7 times better than a bloodhound, which, if you guys know, bloodhounds are used to track lost people. So that's a very big difference. And then also black bears do have a strong homing instinct, which does make, they always kind of will come back to where they know home is. And then kind of get in a little bit more to bear behavior. This is kind of like the 3 top behavior choices that black bear is going to do. So black bears are conflict avoidant. And so what they're going to try to do is to run, hide, or climb. So this video that you're kind of seeing on the right here, that is a bear in downtown Asheville. There's people all around. You can kind of see someone's got to poke his head out right next to the bear. The bear is just trying to get away. He's not trying to stand his ground by any sense. He just wants to be left alone. And so that's kind of generally what a bear is going to do. If you also see on the left-hand side, the picture, the bear is up the tree because of that cat. That is what scared the bear to climb all the way up the tree. So these are kind of the behaviors that bears are most likely going to exhibit. But on the same side, bears are also very curious. And so if they're especially unsure of a situation, what they're going to do is try to get their ears and nose high up, because again, those are their best senses. And so they want to utilize them the best way. So they generally will stand upright, and that's how they kind of investigate foreign smells and foreign objects and things. So this is not a sign of aggression by any means. A lot of times people think this is. It's not. They're just trying to kind of figure out. It's like if you were out gardening and out the corner of your eye, you saw this like big black blob. And so you are going to stand up to kind of check it out and be like, is it a bear or is it just like your neighbor's fat black lab? And then it's just your neighbor's fat black lab. So try not to confuse curiosity with aggression. Although it isn't uncommon for bears to smell hunters in a stand and then to go and investigate. So if that does happen to you, it'd be great for your hunt as long as you're in legal hunting hours and you want that bear. That'd be kind of be a great move. You have a bear just coming right to you. But if you are approached by a non-legal bear, like a female with cubs, these are kind of how you would want to proceed. So I don't think the sound is really playing, but you can kind of see like the captions. So the person talking to this bear is doing it very kind of soft spoken. You would want to be a little bit more assertive when talking to a bear that is climbing up your stand if you didn't want to harvest it. Otherwise, these are actually these like kind of lists of what to do if you're out walking in the woods or if a black bear approaches you. You can find on bearwise.org as well. But they're just kind of good things to remember on what to do if you encounter a bear in the woods. Because as hunters, you do have a higher chance of encounters because you tend to move through denser timber and along trails and in other areas that are going to be frequented by bears. And especially because you are generally also moving quietly and downwind from game, and you also often travel during the same early morning and late evening hours when bears are going to be most active. You kind of want to be cognizant that you may run into bears, and then also to try to understand, if you are, how you should handle the situation. It's really just kind of standing your ground, backing away from the bear, just giving it space for it to exit on its own and for you to be exit on your own as well. And then we get into if a bear is agitated or nervous, however. So thankfully, if bears are generally very kind of vocal and they show a lot of signs where you can read them really well and understand how they're feeling. So if a bear does feel threatened and does not run away, you can be thankful that they are going to generally express themselves really well for you. And so they'll do that and kind of ramp it up as they go if you don't listen to them. But to start, they do vocalizations, which is jaw popping and huffs. We do have the video. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I don't know how to go back. Okay, well, I can't go back to the last slide, so we're just gonna kind of continue. I'll keep talking from the previous one. I don't think you could hear the video, but that video was a good example of a bear huffing and jaw popping. They also will yawn. That is a sign, like same with dogs and cats, it's a sign of stress. And they also will put their ears back, and that is just a sign to let you know they're feeling agitated and nervous. And then now on this slide, it's amped up a little bit more. So if you're watching the video, you could see, here, I'll try to replay it. There we go. While I watch the video, you can see that the bear starts stomping on the ground, slapping, and then does a bluff charge as well. So normally you can scare away a bear pretty easily. However, here in this situation, the bear has a food source. And so it's now going to defend that food source and it's not going to go away super easy. So the best bet and what the method that this lady should have taken is to let the bear be, let it leave, then go back and secure all the attractants later on. But this is kind of the escalation of an agitated or nervous bear. So as soon as you start seeing any of these behaviors, just give the bear space and it should just, again, leave on its own to avoid any conflict. And then lastly, I wanted to let you guys know where you can find current harvest reports, which is just really going to be in Go Outdoors on your Go Outdoors account. You can kind of look it up as the season goes. And then if you're also very interested, you can look up past harvest reports as well on our website. And you can also, it kind of breaks it down, we break it down by county, by region, by method, by weapon type, and by game land as well if you want some more information on like areas where you could potentially hunt for bears. And you can see how successful people have been in the past in different areas. But besides that, that is all I have for you guys. So thank you so much.
All right, Jen, if you could advance to my presentation.
Yeah, I guess, yep, okay, I see we got an approve here, okay. Oh, Colleen, yep, okay. Give me a second here. Stop moving your mouse. Okay, it should be good now.
All right. Hi, everyone. Colleen Olfenbuttle. This is, as it says, a very brief overview of the laws and regulations as it relates to bear hunting. And the reason why it's going to be very brief is not just because of the time limitations we have today, but because guess what? You should know before you go. You should do the homework. That's the first thing you should do if you are interested in going bear hunting, is familiarize yourself with all the regulations that relate to bear hunting. Our annual digest just came out in early August. Here you see a snapshot of it on your screen. If you go to ncwildlife.gov/regulations, you can get to this digest where you will find all those things listed on the side regarding the rules related to taking bears, from the season dates to mandatory 2 submission to our hunter orange requirements. So this is the first thing you should do when you decide to go hunting for bears. You know, one question that gets asked a lot is, what licenses do I need? You know, it's really depends on who you are. We have quite a few licenses, as you'll see when you open up our digest and see the first few pages that are filled with all the various types of licenses. But the key ones you should have are your hunting license. And then on top of that, your big game privileges. And you know you have big game privileges if you get a big game report card as seen on this screen. This is what a typical big game report card looks like. In addition, you need to request your Bear e-stamp. And so if you have a lifetime license prior to July 1st, 2014, this Bear e-stamp is free upon request. Those afterwards now do have to pay for the Bear e-stamp. It is now $14 for this Bear e-stamp. So it's fairly inexpensive, at least hopefully you view that way. But make sure at least you have all three of these: hunting, big game, and the Bear e-stamp. And as you can see, you know you have the privilege to hunt bears if the bear icon is on your report card. So one section you definitely want to check out is pages 60 and 61 of the digest. That's the section that's specifically focused on bears and where you get a lot of information as it relates to what you can and can't do with black bears, including when we have our seasons. That next page you'll see shows where you can hunt bears with dogs, as well as where you can use unprocessed food as bait. One thing I want to note, and you saw it in the prior slide, here we go. You'll see that there's some text in red, under the mountain bear season and under the bear season map. When you see red text in our digest, that means that's something new. Something has changed since the last digest. And in this case, we added 9 days to the mountain bear season to meet population objectives. So that season starts October 4th. We also added Saturday openers to the mountain bear season. That now matches the Saturday openers that occur in the Piedmont bear seasons and the coastal bear seasons. So that's why you see that in red. We also added 3 additional permit hunts on designated bear management areas, which is also what you see in red. So yeah, when you see something in red, hey, something's new, pay attention. All right, again, here's where you can hunt for bears with dogs, as well as where you can use unprocessed food to aid in the taking of bears. And one thing to note, while it's not in red, one change is now you can use unprocessed foods to aid in taking bears all seasons in all areas of the state. In the mountain bear management unit, previously you could not use bait. In that second split, what we call the December season, you now can. So yeah, when the bear season's open, you can use unprocessed bait if you choose to. There are some other restrictions. It's unlawful to take basically a bear less than 75 pounds. That's the minimum weight. It is unlawful to take a female with cubs. And it's unlawful to place processed food products as bait in any area of the state with an established bear season, which is everywhere. So you can't put processed food as bear bait in any place of North Carolina. Now, I mentioned designated bear management areas. And again, there's that red text showing those 3 additional, what I call DBMAs, that are now open to permit hunts. So on our designated bear management areas, for the most part, hunting is restricted. It's unlawful to hunt bears on these DBMAs, except by permit where allowed. How do you know which ones have a permit? Well, look at that asterisk. And believe me, it might be hard to see on your screen, I'm not sure, but in the digest, you'll see if there's an asterisk, that means it's a permit hunt. That means if you get a permit for one of these DBMAs, you can hunt bears on the date designated on the permit. Just as a reminder, on these DBMAs, dogs may not be used to pursue bears, except again during a permit hunt that allows hunting of bear with dogs. Oh, that all looks cattywampus, so I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there, but another important thing to remember beyond season dates and restrictions and, oh, there's a bag limit of 1 bear, is what to do after you harvest that bear. The number one thing you can do is validate it. So after you harvest the bear and before you move it, you're required to validate it. Now, if you have a paper big game harvest report card, which you may have if you've requested one. I know I requested one when I renewed my lifetime license back in July. You can also go into your Go Outdoors account and print one off, but you can have this paper report card and you can cut or punch the corresponding day or month with, and that will serve to validate the harvest. Or you see that or ... We have another way to validate, which actually is probably going to be much slicker and easier. So we now have an app for our agency. And on this app, as you see, there's a section where you can report your big game harvest. So instead of notching your paper big game report card, you can simply go into the app, click report a harvest. You kind of see your digital tags there and you see the black bear tag. And so then you just click that black bear tag on the app and you can not only validate your harvest, but you can report it at the same time. And believe it or not, this works with or without internet service. So even if you don't have cell phone service where you're hunting, which is highly likely, you can still validate and register your harvest. And for more specifics about big game harvest reporting, go see page 58 in the Regs Digest. So I've mentioned register. So if you do the paper report, you decide not to validate and register via the app. If you do it by paper, be sure to register your bear before any of the following occur. 1, before you skin or dismember the bear, before you leave the bear unattended, before you place that bear in the possession of another hunter or person, such as maybe an outfitter, taxidermist, processor, and definitely you need to register before noon of the day following harvest. Like I said, though, I really encourage you to use the app. You can use it where there's no cell phone service. And again, you can validate and register at the same time. There are other ways to register your harvest beyond the app, and I have those listed there. Mainly, you can go online. You can call 1-800-I-GOT-ONE, or we do have, you can do it in person at a wildlife service agent. You can find that list online as well. One of the last things I want to cover is, again, after the harvest, the other thing you have to do is mandatory tooth submission. It's been mandatory to submit your tooth by January 31st following the applicable bear season for about 4 years now. And as it says, we try to make it really easy for you. So once you get your Bear e-stamp, you will get mailed a self-addressed postage paid envelope. There are examples there in the presentation, and there's instructions on the envelope. You follow the instructions, you fill out the information, you pop the tooth, which is a premolar, into the envelope, and then drop it in the mailbox. I do encourage you, as it says in the ad, and that ad is also in the digest, that, again, I'll be honest, the Postal Service is pretty darn good in getting these envelopes to us. Are they 100%? Not yet. So in the instance maybe that your envelope somehow gets lost or delayed, we do recommend hunters keep the other premolar tooth as a backup. Because guess what, folks? There's typically 4 premolar teeth in these bears. So 4. So take the one to send to us and take another one as a backup. Shoot, you could take the other 3 as backups. And if for some reason we don't get your tooth, you can send us another one. If you want to see a video on how to pull the tooth from the bear, just scan that QR code. Again, that QR code, in addition to being here, it's also in our digest, or just go to ncwildlife.gov/bear cooperator for that demo video and instructions. We are probably going to be getting all of these bear tooth envelopes to you in the next week or 2. Our goal is to try to get these bear tooth envelopes to all the Bear e-stamp holders by early October. If you buy your Bear e-stamp during the season, usually it does take about a week, maybe 2 weeks for us to get that envelope to you, but it will get to you. If you harvest a bear and you don't have an envelope, just keep that tooth, contact us, and we'll get an envelope to you. All right. And I'm done. Thank you.
Jenna and Colleen, you have set the bar for the entire webinar. So it's now up to Lee and I to take it from here. Excellent information. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to that tagging, I don't think he could have made it easier. So yes, the folks may not have any tagging questions, but any questions, again, we address at the end. Thank you so much. So where to hunt? That is the number one question typically from new hunting folks. And I'm going to run through this pretty quick, but this is another one, just like Colleen said, and I like that slogan, know before you go, because mine is similar in that it's let your fingers do the walking first, and you definitely have time. So our goal is to connect people to resources. We are not a guide service, but we do the best to get you on the way to your hunt. So as it states at the top, that is my mantra. And you can see there, statewide, there's a bunch of game lands, bunch of public land where you can hunt. Moving on, right on the screen there, you put your cursor up by hunting and a drop box comes down where to hunt and shoot. And after the hunt, before the hunt, it's all there, an opportunity for you to research that in advance. So there I'm going to the Game Lands maps, and no matter what state I go to, and I do hunt multiple states, I will search the Game Lands information because that's what I hunt. I'm not a private land hunter. You'll have your interactive map with dove. Well, it has the dove fields right there because most people are interested in it, or a lot are. And also, I really like the downloadable geo-referenced PDFs. And in fact, I'm kind of jealous in that my home state has maps, but they're not geo-referenced, and you can find out how you can use them. So let's pull up Jordan Lake, for example. You see all the parking areas, the camping areas, and one of the things I really like is where that big red arrow is. And for you that have already been on the website, you already know this, but for some new folks, maybe not. Those are decimal degrees. And nowadays, even on our phone, we have a Google app, navigation app, that we could type those in as written and nearly get everywhere you want to be by adjusting that map size, pulling it out, looking closer at the topography, everything else. I used to spend time wandering aimlessly for years, using gas and a lot of footwork to do the things that folks have nowadays via the www, the World Wide Web. So it does make it a lot easier. So as for the PDFs, one of the first game lands I visited was Buffalo Cove. That was the first place I wanted to go turkey hunting. I started out in New Bern as a wildlife technician, and I said it was too flat here, so I want to go to the mountains, and that's basically the foothills. So there's an example of the geo-reference map. Also has those same parking areas and the green color that shows really where the borderline is. Well, if you take those geo-referenced maps and you download them into Avenza, you basically have a handheld GPS. And they also have a legend on the pages, but that way you can navigate with your phone. Now, the geo-referenced PDFs aren't as detailed, say, as another map or as using another app that you're going to see shortly, and also like Google Map or Earth, but they can keep you on the border, and definitely a great place to mark your spots. One thing I will say about boundary markers, our staff try to stay up on that by marking them. Trees fall, sometimes the signs get taken, and the boundary goes away. They try to adjust that as quick as they can. But unlike years ago, when I remember even people would tear signs down, and they should never do that, and on an area that's private. Now with the apps available, you can't say, well, sorry, didn't see the sign. So keep that in mind because the technology is there. OnX, I hear a lot of folks use it. It's out there. You can find out property names, where the government land is, everything else. It is extremely popular. And again, just another way to navigate. And so totally up to you folks. And I know this is popular. I also like to coordinate further with Google Map. Some prefer Google Earth, but this allows me to take a broader view of the area, not just within the game lands. And it's also great for looking at the topography better than, say, the geo-reference maps, and also the ability to look at the habitat. Like I can see, if I'm hunting in the east, like for example, I started hunting deer on Shockoe Creek, lots of pines up there. Well, You can drive through an area of pines and think there's no hardwoods until you look at it in Google Map. And then you see these areas that often follow maybe a little bit of a drainage that has hardwoods. Well, hardwoods are not only good for deer, they're also good for bears. So excellent to do that. And again, all for letting your fingers do the walking. You can see a GPS in the bottom there, has the yellow border. I'm still a fan of that. I'll be 65 this month, so I still like the old technology, but still like the new technology as well. And my GPSs have got me out of everywhere. So it's like a friend to carry in the woods, one of those safe things. Permit hunts, as an example, right on our screen. In fact, right on the main screen when you scroll down. And I do find out that a lot of folks are guilty, even myself sometimes, of not scrolling down. Certain game lands have permit hunts, and you need to look at the game lands book, either in the Regs Digest or on our website, and it will indicate whether by permit only, and that'd be by permit turkey, by permit bear, by permit deer. And by and large, though, most are wide open. So you need a lot of application information there. It gives you an overview, and then to actually look at the types of events. We used to have a book. We don't have that booklet anymore. You go to apply or purchase. This was the first time I got an opportunity to redact myself, which was pretty neat. I've never been redacted, I don't think. But there you go. Once you sign in, and we do request you sign in, you can see the permit hunt applications. Once you go there, again, do the scrolling, and you can see where some bear permits are. I do see a lot of them have already reached the deadline, but I also see one there, it's 10/1 is the deadline. So that is something for you to take a look at. And I would say by and large, many of our staff and people I know do the permit hunts and enjoy them. And they basically reduce the population of hunters on certain game lands that will typically get more pressure. It is by a fee. I think it's $8 or $10 now. And it's a drawing. So you're not guaranteed to get them unless they're the point of sale over the counter permit. Some you can just get it. Others are by drawing, and that's something you can dig into further. Talking a little bit very briefly about public land, as a public land hunter my entire life. As a general rule, it is first come, first served, meaning that, if you run into another hunter and they're first, most people will respect that. But keep in mind, it is a public resource and everybody's entitled to be there. Tree stands do equal public property, and you're looking at one of my rigs. I typically put 4 of those out for deer, maybe just carry one because I move a lot, maybe in bear season, but they have all they need inside, and they're also cable locked. So I kind of make it so it's not easy to use it. I've never had a problem with anybody taking it, but keep that in mind. Tree stands equal public property. And I one time saw a ladder stand that had a little sign on it. And the little sign said, "My name is so-and-so, and I'll be in this stand from date to date." And he was basically saying, he or her were saying, well, you can use it. And so some will do that. Hunting out of visual distance from others, safety and competition. Unlike turkey, where you're moving in to set up on a bird, typically deer and bear hunting, someone's going to sit up for a while unless they're moving through the woods. But for the most part, if they're out of sight distance, you're not competition for a shot. So you really don't want to be that close to another hunter. And in most places, you can get away from hunters. I always do. Encounter another, move or negotiate. Perfect example, PA turkey hunt. I was in the parking lot. I often joke around that I'm the first one there. The only one beats me is God. And there was a truck there, and I got out. They were there first. I said, "Hey, where are you guys going?" They told me the road. I chose the next road. So it's easy. It's easy to do that. Pre-dawn flashlight headlamp is typically another hunter, and that's how you know if somebody's coming, and most people will respect that if you're there. Some tips: be there first, last, or off days. Many people hunt those opening days and also weekends, but you can have it off during the week if you can take lead. Dogs and hunters move game, so use both to your advantage, and I typically do. If I know the access points, I'm typically in well in advance, and I can even sometimes hear the vehicles crunching the gravel. And then I'll start getting excited because oftentimes, not always, there's no absolutes in hunting, but I'll end up seeing game while they're moving in. Have a plan for both your hunt and transport of game. Don't wait until something's on the ground, whether bear or deer and say, okay, what am I going to do now? Getting fit, especially in rough terrain and retrieval. I mean, you're harvesting a bear. I'd say even for me in my later years, I could handle a 200-pound bear if I'm not dragging it uphill. And I think I could drag it uphill very, very slowly. But if it's big and you've got a long distance to go, plan in advance. Some bear hunting tidbits, according to me. A stand hunter. One of the things I like to do, and I'm a postseason scouter, but preseason, finding out where the mast is, that's food for them. So if there's not agriculture, that's what you want to do. And you can see a lot of that in Google Map. So I'll scout for those trees, a little bit of feed on the ground, and find out where it is dropping. And it can be a challenge if it's everywhere because bears roam a lot. Typically, if it's concentrated, that can be better for bear hunting. So too much food can be bad. Scan the canopy with binoculars, search the ground for old sign, including paw marks or scratchings or things like that, and prepare to come back when the season's in. Through the lens of a bear hunter, I am a stand hunter, but will relocate based on sign habitat. So whereas I'll sit 13 hours in the tree during the rut, I'm a little more prone to moving with bear if I'm not having activity. My bear hunting is casual by default. Deer and turkey dominate leave time, but R4 is coming up. See, my job is recruitment, retention, reactivation. R4, as you might guess, is retirement. So I hope to spend more time bear hunting. I'm looking typically for ridge tops and big woods with tree stands and tree seats, which you're going to see. I like to be comfortable. You'll see what that is, but I also like to be high. And that way you're out of that bear's nose that you heard about. The advantage in being in a ridge, and I grew up in Ridge and Valley, was thermals can help you in the morning as that air is cooling and pushing air to the top, as will a northwest wind if you're seated in the direction. So I will try to make sure that that wind is in my face and not coming from my back if I'm watching a trail or an area. So keep that in mind. Success rate is low in my style, without dogs and human drives, and that was so common to me in PA. Probably happens down here too, so in non-dog areas. So right place, right time rules. If you do your scouting, some tips. Remote areas with minimal access for dog hunting hunters equals bear sanctuary. And of course, one of the people that's going to Q&A tonight, I like to think is a master of this, and he spends a lot of time scouting. So those areas where it's difficult to get ahead of dogs when they're moving around can be areas where bears will end up. Food is a factor in preseason scouting, paramount. Almost already said that, but again, more food, more roaming. Concentration of food, that can be better. Rhododendron, mountain laurel thickets and successional thickets are places I look for and usually like to be by an edge or up high near an edge. Vantage points, edge habitat, and woodland hollows are a good stand location. I'm going to make a point on that in a picture I have coming up. Hollows can be an advantage, and you can see a little bit further. Not wide open hollows where bears maybe cruise through when they're being chased, but ones they can sneak through that you can see from above, especially if you're not using a tree stand. So my focus, preferred habitat and food, not harvest rates, and not even for deer or turkey. I typically don't look at that. I see that as also an increase in pressure, but can also be good moving them. But we have our own ways of doing things, and some things we avoid. So that's me. Plastic sleds, woods, or carts, trails make transport easier when applicable. Not always, but they can help. Bears tend to slide easier than deer, but if you're dragging it a mile or so, I don't want to ruin the hide. So I do like to be able to transport it. Only well-placed shots on bears, you're going to hear that again, as marginal hits can be a crippling loss, and especially without the aid of dogs. Our nose isn't that good. So it's going to be different than when you go in the grocery store, when your heart starts pounding when you're hunting as compared to being in a grocery store. Your heart's going slow in the grocery store, it starts pounding, so you get nervous. My lay of the land strategy, and you're going to see it here. This is a place up in PA, and I'll just move the cursor without moving. Hopefully you can see it. That is referred to as, God, I'm forgetting the name of it now. Anyway, that's the road that I go up. I'm going all around here. I come up around back and I come up this trail right to about there. And right there is a parking area. You can see it there. And I'm going to back away from it. Well, I'll go right out along and I'm really getting up to the ridge top. So it's relatively level up here. And I've often placed myself in here or even in here. Well, if the bear doesn't go over the edge, and sometimes I will be the edge, I can card him back that trail pretty easily. And I've killed one up there in 98. That was a long time ago. But if I'm at this point, the advantage is I kill him and he's on this side. He can roll. Bears roll. They're kind of like they say Bumbles bounce in Rudolph. Well, bears roll, and it'll all go all the way down to that road. And all I've got to do is follow it. And if it gets stuck on a tree, I can usually pull it away and it'll go down. So that's kind of my strategy there if I'm hunting in a ridge area. Find the mass, find the stuff. Yep, find the bear. A little bit about gear, and I'm going to move. We're going to be good. Again, a little bit over, but we're giving you the best we got. So cartridges have opinions just like anything else humans have. But if you're within that 30 caliber and even below in some cases, even with the 270 through that 300 Winchester mag, those are good bear guns. A lot of folks, and I hit it again there, they like those straight wall cases. They can be really good. Larger wound channel, that's what about. These magnums in the center, they're also good, but they're also tend to be overkill for black bear. I took a black bear, the one I got in North Carolina with a 375 H&H. Didn't really need that gun. So that's just an idea. And again, asking the person that has knowledge in the stores or even other friends can give you that idea. But even that 30-30, that very modest cartridge still takes bears. The thing you do want to know is use the most powerful cartridge you can shoot accurately. If it recoils too much, you're going to flinch, and that means a miss or a crippling shot. Choose one that fits. That's not too heavy. If it's too heavy, if it's too long, you're not going to shoot accurately with it. And obviously use the right bullet in your caliber. And there are certain ones and a lot of resources out there. Don't get one that expands too violently and explodes. You want to get enough penetration, but enough also that causes a mushroom. Some bear and deer guns. On the top is a bolt, a semi-auto, a lever, a pump, and a single shot. And they're from 30-06 to 270 to 35 Whelen to 358 Winchester. All work and getting, again, in the larger calibers. 243 is one we commonly use for deer, but kind of light for bear. Killable, yes, but it's a smaller bullet. Even shotguns, I'll call deer and bear shotguns. Those are 20 gauges. Now with the rifled barrel, the scope, the saboted bullet, they also can be good for folks that like using shotguns. It's a short range affair as compared to the rifle, but when you're hunting woods, especially in close quarters, still good. There's that mushrooming. You want that bullet not to stay pointed, but to expand and not tear apart, but expand that it creates a, say, from a 30 caliber to a 40 or a 45 and a 45 to a 50 or even higher. That's what opens up those bears and gets more blood and a good trail out of them. So just a little bit what goes in my pack. I mean, a lot of fleece stuff I'm going to use. I'll move the cursor around here if I can grab it. Fleece suit. Sometimes I'll have a vest on as well. I'll have underlayers, wool socks, sometimes a polypropylene base layer, hand warmer and pouch, this little umbrella sometimes, not really the cover scent. I do carry unscented baby wipes. I will use a hunter deodorant, a handkerchief, this pad to stand on, a drag rope. Usually I have some calls in there to play with. I will carry a thermos of coffee, not this here deer stuff like a grunt call or anything else. I'll have my journal, a little first aid kit, sometimes soup in a container, but not, pair of binoculars, my backpack, and sometimes some scents. I will use a Fox cover scent sometimes, but not always, flashlights and headlamps. So just a quick overview of what I typically carry. Again, a big fan of carts. On the left that I'll move stands, end game, and I have a larger bear cart as well. And then sleds. Carts are great for trails, not for rocks and logs. Sleds are great for rocks and logs if needed. I mean, it slides over, and again, it's not going to ruin your bear hair. That's one of my rigs again on the left, and there's one of my rigs chained up with a cart chain cable locked to the tree and covered up some debris. I've never had any problem, and I do that, and that's where with me, I don't have to drag it back out. And since I have multiples, I can put them in multiple places. So there's me. I'll take that cart, I'll hide it under some logs and debris, and I'll typically put a piece of camo on it. I left one in past the season into March. It was still there. And that's about how I like to be, 18 to 20 feet in a tree. Blinds work well if you're not a fan of heights. Typically, if I'm bear hunting, I'm not using a blind, even if I'm on the ground, but they work. And of course, I found a blind tree stand, which is kind of rare, but I guess you could do that. These are great for mobile bear hunters. I like them. They are by different companies. It attaches to the tree, weighs 8-9 pounds. I like to be comfortable. Hence, that's why I use a climber. Yeah, there's many out there. You may like them and not too pricey. Back in the day, we started on the ground like that guy on the right. That was part of a book there. Didn't worry about tree stands, and the tree stands we made look like something, that one on the right, that was very unsafe. And of course, that gun's a Savage Model 99, and that is extremely vintage. But nowadays, a lot of people use tree stands and/or saddles. I don't use one, but some people do. Vital areas, kind of like a deer, you can see where they are, kind of similar to a bear. And knowing that and looking at that in advance and understanding it is extremely important. Lee, take over, my good man, and you may have to take control again.
And I will.
You are good to go.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I realize that we're getting close to the 8 o'clock hour, so I will try to keep this brief.
We are good, Lee. No worries. We are good.
We're going to talk about hunting black bears in the eastern part of North Carolina. A little bit about myself. I've lived in eastern part of North Carolina most of my adult life. Ironically, I was telling Deed earlier, the first black bear I ever shot was in the Virginia mountains, and it was with a bow, and it was more of a product of opportunity. Since then, I have done lots of black bear hunting out on the coast of North Carolina. North Carolina is a unique state, especially as far as our black bear population, where it differs greatly among the coast and the mountains. So, the big thing that we're going to start off on the coast is we're going to start scouting. I find that black bears are creatures very much of habit. Until you disturb that habit, they'll continuously do, what they'll do every day. And they'll keep that habit up as long as the food supply hangs out, the water supply hangs out, and you don't change their area any. One of the things we start looking for early before the season starts is we start scouting as to what bears are out there. As we talked about, the males and the females, or boars and sows, as we like to call them. There is a difference in the size of those bears. So if you want that larger bear, you want to look for a nice boar, and there's several ways to tell. The biologist talked about that a little bit earlier, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. The eastern part of North Carolina is predominantly dominated by agriculture, so the bears don't have to go far to find food. And we'll look at what are they doing in those agricultural areas, and I'm going to show you some examples of what they do in different ag crops. This is a wheat field. You can see there that they've made a path through that wheat field. You can see when they get tired of eating, they'll lay down and just take a little nap out in that wheat field. They'll pop up, looks like a whack-a-mole game out there late in the evening. You can start looking at them, and you can start seeing, who's in that wheat field. Are these bears that we're interested in hunting, on property that we may be able to hunt, on property that manages, that borders public land. There are some large public access areas out here. There's some large wildlife refuges out here. Unfortunately, you cannot hunt bear on those wildlife refuges. So again, make sure you understand, you've done your scouting. You've looked at, where is it legal for me to hunt and where can I not hunt? One of the things we look at as the season goes on is their scat. As their diet changes, the scat starts to change, so you can tell bear's digestive system is not very efficient. You can see right here, this bears eat a lot of wheat, and it came out pretty much the way it went in. Bears like to pick travel corridors. If they have an area that they want to travel, they're going to stay with it until you disrupt it. And even when they start getting pressure from people and or dogs, they're going to stick with those travel corridors that are comfortable with to them because they know where they're going. On the left here on the screen, you'll see a trotted path where the bears, there may be five, six, or a dozen more bears all use that same path. Everybody finds a nice comfortable spot and we'll stay on it. They like to use broken down logs as bridges. Bears are incredibly agile. As you've seen them climb trees, they can walk across trees that you and I would have a lot of problem with. Here's some pictures of. Hold on, my screen's going a little faster than I want it to. Here's Here's some pictures of where they cross ditches. As those of you who are familiar with the eastern part of North Carolina, there are a lot of ditches and canals that were dug here in order to drain water to help agriculture, as well as to provide space for people to live in. So you'll see as they cross those ditches and canals, they'll leave lots of footprints, and we'll find what we call slides. We pay attention to those slides during hunting season because you can see, when the bear move in and out of those slides. If they're going to cross a path or a road, they're going to bring water with them when they come. When they get down in that water, their coat grabs it and brings it out with us. That tells you, when did that bear actually move through that area. Here's what happens when bears get in a cornfield. They do a tremendous amount of agricultural damage. As you can see here, what they don't eat, they roll around in and just make a bed in. Another picture of a path that they used to cross. You can also look and you'll find things such as posts and things like that. Bears seem to like those products. This shows you what bears do to, pressure treated lumber. As they come out of the water, they may scratch and mess with trees right here. You see where they were crossing that canal. We also look at tracks a lot. This is a bear track next to a 70-pound dog track, so they'll give you an idea of the size. Tracks will tell you a little bit about the size of that bear. There's another picture of some scat. Here's some other pictures of some tracks. Both the front and the back feet of bears are different. So as you're looking at tracks, they'll look a little bit different. This is a front paw. Pre-season, as Deet said, I spent a lot of time digitally scouting. I choose onX. I find it's a great product. It tells you lots of different ways in which you can scout. But, I still also will go back to Google Earth and a couple other things. I'll go to our Game Lands map. That helps me see things there. But I'll do a lot of digital scouting prior to the season, figuring out where I want to hunt. When it's time to do in-person scouting, I use binoculars a lot. I think good optics help you a lot. A good pair of boots allow you to really get out and walk along. Because we have large fields that border our public areas out here, I can really get a good look across those fields, and I can walk along those edges, looking at those bear there. So boots are a good thing. Some of the gear that I use, I don't carry quite as much stuff as Deet does. And I knew that he would show you everything, so I didn't put as much stuff in there. Generally in my pack, I'm going to have some of the essentials I'll need. Generally, there's a pad in here to sit in. I'm going to carry some pruning stuff. I always carry some rain gear, some first aid equipment, toilet paper, extra cartridges. I prefer mostly straight wall cartridges because most of the times you're in that, that denser cover where you don't have those long shots. But as Deet said, a wounded bear is tremendously hard to track, especially if that's a large bear because they have a lot of fat on them. Fat tends to seal those wound channels. So if you don't get a good, clean shot, you're setting yourself up for a lot of headache. I make sure I always have gloves. I have briar-proof stuff. I try to wear layered camo. I believe in some of the newer forms of camo. I think it does perform a little bit better, especially with moisture wicking, because you may start off in the 30s and by the end of the day you're in the 70s. So being able to shed layers and wick that moisture away from you helps a lot. Processing that bear. I always carry some stuff to process it, and usually I'm going to have a couple of knives. One is one of those little foldable knives with a razor blade, some gloves, some wet wipes, some trash bags. I always have a tooth submission envelope with me there, so to remember that I need to do my tooth submission there. That's important. Um, Here's some pictures of some coastal bears that we've added in here. You see this little guy here just walked right up out of the ditch, and that's right beside a refuge road. So he just walks out and says, "Hey, what are you doing out here?" Uh, Game cameras are a great way to digitally scout. Bears do love them, though. Make sure if you're going to put them up in an area with a healthy bear population, you need to make sure you put them in a bear box. That'll protect all but the antenna. And you know, when you're no longer able to get pictures, the bears probably got your antenna and pulled it off. They're incredibly curious creatures. They like to mess with everything. You can see this young female right here. She's walking along and she's looking at us. I'm right there in the stand. She's looking right at me. She knows there's something there. She's just not really sure what it is. We also have some of the biggest black bear in the world in eastern North Carolina. Your chances to see one of these are generally pretty good. Maybe not to actually shoot it, but you can definitely get a chance to see one of these if you want to take a trip out to some of these wildlife refuges out here. They're great places to observe bears and bear behavior. So, you know, that helps you study a little bit about, you know, what do these bears do out here on the coast. All right. That's all right now. We're about 5 minutes past 8 o'clock. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and let's turn it over to the question and answer session, I think.
Okay, yeah, let me just, I have one or two commercials and then we'll hit that up, Lee. Yep. As I always say, folks, and I'll take over the screen now, Lee. So yeah, you can leave the screen go. Okay, yeah. I always say, folks, there's far more wanting than there is willing. And so if interested in being involved, that's my next slide. I don't know, we got a rogue cursor there. So yeah, I don't know what's happening. Here's where it is, learn to hunt at ncwildlife.gov, especially with me moving on. And in fact, our communication staff did a little outreach today, and I had like 5 people reaching out and saying they were interested. So I sent them the drill, a bunch of information, and I do the same for you. So as you can see, assist as an instructor, instructor assistant, or logistics. That means just helping set up, host a workshop at your hunt camp or on your property. Currently, we have one landowner venue. The rest are education centers or, NC State places. Host a one-time hunting opportunity to someone new to hunting. Many a times after workshops, we have a lot of new people. And again, whether deer, bear, turkey, squirrel, or whatever, we have a lot of new people and typically have a fair amount of instructors, but it is a limiting factor. But rarely, you know, somebody that's interested to be involved in an organized hunt. So we could use that. Not sure if you're willing to commit and or have questions, ask. That's what we're here for. So with the Q&A, and I want to remind people about the recordings because a lot of times people will come in late and they miss that whole first slide. So that link that you received from me is not the recording. The recordings are distributed within 2 weeks and sometimes longer because I don't do them. It's handled by our other staff. They have to be processed in the YouTubes. They will end up also on our YouTube page, but I will distribute all recordings when I get them. And do please complete that post-webinar, not seminar, survey, because that helps us to improve our programming. We love accolades, but it's really the constructive criticism that improves the programming. We try to do it on our own, but we try to listen to you as well. So when it comes to questions, and now I'm going to move my cursor up here and find the stuff. Let me see here. Okay, there it is. So, okay, yep, no touching that screen, anybody. You'll be scaring me. So before we get into the questions, what's going to happen is Lee is the coastal bear person. Greg is filling in as the stand hunter. And obviously, Colleen and Jenna are kind of all else. And we don't have enforcement here tonight. If anything is enforcement related that we can address, then we are going to refer you to the website And if you go and look at the top bar, it'll say connect with us, something to that effect, and you'll be able to see enforcement. And you can even look up your district's wildlife conservation officer. So feel free to do that. So, okay, first question. Thank you. I'm using my wife's Zoom account. This is Conrad. Sorry, I'll send a follow-up email. Thank you. All right. What are legal weapons for hunting bear? Well, one of the things I will say right off the bat, and I'm sure League and Greg will agree with me, but I'm going to step on regs. We regulate the poundage of bows. So you will see that archery equipment, the poundage. We don't regulate firearms. That said, small calibers are unethical. In small calibers in the right hands would kill any animal on earth, but for the most part, it would do nothing more than cripple. So I'm just going to say right off from the cartridges I showed you, I'm going to let Lee say what he prefers, and then we're going to let Greg say what he prefers. Lee, briefly.
Like I said before, black bears are, especially on the coast, they're large frame, thick animals, especially with the bigger males with a lot of fat. If it's out in a field and the bear is still, I prefer the larger 30 caliber cartridges. If it's in the woods or the animal might be moving, I want some of your straight wall cartridges. I do like a 45-70. A 20 gauge slug gun with the proper slugs in it is ballistically very close to a 45-70. Those are my preferred things. A bow will also do it. I mean, a bow, with a good broad-handed leaves an incredible wound channel. I've killed black bear with a bow just fine, or a crossbow.
Okay, Greg.
Well, I think you've already said it, but I prefer a 7 mag mainly because that's what I use for deer hunting. But I have also killed bears with a 300 Ultra Mag. So definitely that bigger cartridge gets you more of a more blood, and more blood in thick cover is going to be what you need if that bear runs off and you do not hear a death moan.
Okay, awesome. When Deed showed a magazine cover saying American Deer Hunter or something along those lines with a hunter on the cover, he said very unsafe. What about that image was unsafe? Did it have to do with the hunter's position on the ground? No, the hunter was good. I referred to that that we used to stand on the ground, and no, that's perfectly fine. You just want to make sure though that you have your hunter orange on when hunting big game and other species, and that is noted in the Regs Digest. What I was referring to as unsafe is that tree stand platform that was nothing more than a piece of wood on a couple pieces of planks against a tree. Back in the day, there were many wooden tree stands, and I've seen hunters already high in a tree, 30, 40 feet on one plank that was wedged between two trees. That is what is safe, being elevated without a suitable tree stand and a safety harness and a lifeline and all those things. And you can look that up more. But no, hunting on the ground is perfectly fine. Just make sure you wear your orange when big game hunting or for species as noted when big game is in. It is not legal to take a sow with cubs, but if there are multiple bears and none of them look very young or small, how do you make the determination that they would count as cubs? Is it by estimating their weight? And we're going to let Colleen and or Jenna go after that one as the biologists that are deep in this. And we'll get something from the hunters too if we want. Go ahead.
Jenna, did you want to take the stab first?
Can. Yeah, so a good way it is really going to be by estimating their weight. So in the regulation where we say you can't legally take a sow with cubs, it also says that there's a limit on weight, so you have to be 75 pounds. You can't take a bear smaller than 75 pounds, so that kind of helps capture cubs.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sure. And in addition to what Jenna said, yeah, I know some of you guys might have situations where certainly on camera, you see, multiple bears maybe at a bait pile, for example. And then maybe you're lucky enough that when you're on the stand, you see multiple bears. And I would just go back to what Jenna and Lee showed and trying to identify, okay, do any of these bears look like a female? So they could be a mother. Do any of these bears look like they could be a cub? Do any of these bears look like they're under 75? And if the answer is yes, 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 yeah, you might want to hold off pulling the trigger or whatever weapon you're using. But if you're seeing multiple bears and you're like, man, there's nothing to indicate that it's a female, or at least not a female with cubs. All these other bears, look like adults. They definitely look over 75 pounds. Then yeah, it's probably safe to say. But again, I would use those key characteristics that Jenna and Lee talked about. And if you still aren't sure, then it's best to just not harvest the bear. Wait for another opportunity.
All great. And just in case on our hunter side, Lee, not repeated. Anything stand out? And then we'll get Greg, not repeated. Does anything else stand out?
I agree with Colleen, but going and looking at your bear behavior, if you've got a sow with small cubs, she's not going to want any other bears around there. So if you start looking at that size and paying attention to that behavior, you just may have a group of smaller bears. If they're all of legal size, pick the one you think is the one you want to harvest and go to it. But like Colleen said, pay attention to the size and the action of those bears.
Yep. Greg?
Yeah, we're in the day of YouTube. You can go online and watch bear hunts over and over and over again, especially bear hunts that are hunting over bait. And that'll give you a good estimate of what a big bear looks like and what a small bear looks like. That being said, when you start getting nervous out there because bears are coming in, having that little background of watching some online will give you an estimate up front. But if it's a legal bear and you think it's a legal bear and that's what you're after, good luck, good hunting, and get him killed.
All great information. Can I tote a rifle during bear season when it's only bow season for deer?
Yes. Would you not? So the answer to that is, years ago, the legislature passed what we nicknamed the Castle Doctrine, which discussed, right to carry on certain lands and certain areas. The restrictions on weapons is on take of the animal, not on you being in the woods and it just happens to be bear season. And, maybe, it's bow season on deer, but the bear season's open with rifle. So the short answer is yes, you can, because as I noted, as of right now, all the bear season in North Carolina are weapon of choice.
Yeah.
I would say the only thing you'll get in trouble is if an enforcement officer rolls up and it's obvious that you took that deer with that rifle you were toting. But again, yes, you can. And the next question, I think I answered that. Are there weapon seasons for bears? Yep. Again, it's weapon of choice. If we basically like to say that when the bear season opens, there are opportunities for all hunters, regardless of what weapon they prefer, be it crossbow, archery, rifle, shotgun, 8 of dogs. Yeah, it's equal opportunity from the time the season starts to the time the season ends. The only place where we do have some separation is some of our new permit hunts in the Mountain Bear Management Unit. Some of those new permit hunts maybe have where it's still hunt only during a certain time during the season and dog hunt only during another part. There's another permit hunt where there's an actual area where it's still hunt only and another area that's dog hunt only. Again, those are on the permit hunts.
Well, I'll tell you what, my panelists are amazing tonight. They don't even need another Deet James. You guys could handle this totally by yourself. Great, all great comments. I'm not seeing anything else. Yeah, and thanks for picking that next one up, Colin, because I was thinking that myself. I was going to say asked and answered. Yep. I don't see any other questions right now. So this is an opportunity. I mean, well, obviously we probably did fairly well overall as a team. This is an opportunity for any closing comments. And so yeah, let's start with both our bear biologists. Any closing comments to these hunters? And of course, if a question pops up, we'll grab it.
I'll go first. I'll just say thanks for participating in this webinar. Thanks for your interest in bear hunting. Be safe out there. Be careful. I wish you the best of luck. And thank you for being a part of helping us to manage our bear population.
Yeah, that's pretty much everything I was gonna say. I was just gonna really say good luck, especially if this is your first hunt coming up. Good luck and stay safe.
Okay, Greg, we'll start with you then.
Well, I'm a mountain bear hunter mostly. I spend a lot of time covering ground in the mountains, hunting from daylight till dark. Be prepared to stay out there a long time. I think Deep had already mentioned that. I cover ground, and the good thing about covering ground in the fall in the mountains, you get to see the leaves changing colors. You might jump a grouse, find some chicken of the woods, maitake mushrooms, things like that. There's more to hunting bears, or more to hunting than just actually killing. So enjoy your time out there and have a blast. If you wind up harvesting a bear, that's just food on the table and a memory that you'll last forever. But there's a lot of opportunities for you to enjoy your time out there while you're there. Have fun and good luck.
Lee.
Thank you, Deep, for inviting me to be on this webinar. And as Colleen said, bear hunting opportunities in North Carolina are there for everybody. Whether you choose to spot and stalk, still hunt, or use the aid of dogs, the opportunities are there. Get out and try them. Do your scouting. There's a lot of online resources. If you know dog hunting's not your thing, then you may want to avoid areas where people do that. But get out, enjoy it. It's a great pastime. Bear hunting in North Carolina is truly a great opportunity for everybody.
First of all, I definitely want to thank all the awesome panelists tonight. And I seriously can say I was very excited about this. It's been great to have, obviously, the bear team that, spend so much time with these critters, and the great presentations. Greg, which I discovered recently, was an awesome bear hunter. In fact, Colleen gave him a lot of credit. And it's true, after I seen those notes, I finally seen those notes that they were talking about. So yeah, I'm going to have to pick up a couple of your tips. Lee has been assisting now for quite some time. He's been just so dedicated. He's so into that. He is so passionate about bear hunting, and it really shows, and he's become a really good friend. I'm going to see if there's another question in the queue before I that. Okay, we do. I'm going to stop momentarily. A bear process. A bear processing webinar coming like a deer one. Well, I will let my supervisor know. What I will say about that is that we have deer processing videos, a whole series of them. It can be difficult to get a bear certain times. It's something that could potentially happen, a live processing, but we often put some videos together. But hey, it's wide open. We'll see what happens later on. So I'll just comment about that. So getting back on track, it's been a heck of a ride with this. This is my last webinar. Each event going by has been more and more humbling. And I've been just so happy to work for this agency and work with the people in here. They're just incredible. And I'm so happy I took this journey. So, but it's not about me, it's about you. Be ethical, be safe. As we're saying, relative to volunteerism, pass it on. This is something that will change your life. And as was pointed out, and I can speak for it, turning 65, harvest is icing on a cake. As was pointed out, the leaves, the outdoors, the experience, seeing game, that is so much more. You want to join us? We're out there. We still got some minis coming up, and before you know it, yeah, season flies by. Get out there. Again, be safe, be ethical, take care. Thank you so much again, panelists. Everybody have a great night. Look forward to seeing you down the trail somewhere. Thank you so much.